Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Representatives from the NYPD say that a 49-year-old man is facing charges this week after he allegedly set a local Bangladeshi restaurant on fire because he was unhappy with his food order. According to reports, the situation began at around 6 a.m. on October 2nd when police and firefighters were called to the scene of a blaze at Itati Garden and Grill in Jackson Heights. Thankfully, the fire was put out before the building was totally engulfed in flames, but the restaurant's windows had still been shattered and its air conditioning unit had been destroyed. It was estimated that more than $1,500 in repairs would be needed. The restaurant's owner was dealt another devastating blow when he learned that the situation had been no accident. Thanks to surveillance video taken from outside the business, it was quickly revealed that the fire had been deliberately started by an unknown man. In the footage, the suspect could be seen walking up to the restaurant before dumping a bucket full of flammable liquid through its security shutters and onto the entranceway. After fumbling around for a few seconds, he bent down extremely close to the liquid and ignited it, clearly not realizing how dangerous this was. Almost immediately, the area erupted into a fireball, causing the entrance to the restaurant as well as the suspect's shoes to burst into flames. The suspect could then be seen running from the scene while simultaneously trying to put his shoes out. Thanks to this footage and the combined efforts of the NYPD and the city's fire department, the unknown arson suspect was soon identified as 49-year-old Shopal Norbu. It turned out that Norbu was a disgruntled customer who had been at the restaurant just hours before allegedly setting the fire. Following his arrest, Norbu told police that on the night in question he had ordered some chicken biryani from the restaurant, but they had given him something else. In a rage, he had yelled at staff and thrown the food out before apparently deciding that a proportional response would be to buy a container of gasoline and try to burn the restaurant to the ground. Though this will likely come as no surprise, it's said that Norbu also admitted to police that he had been drunk at the time. For their part, staff at the restaurant reportedly said that they remembered Norbu and his little outburst. However, they claim that they gave the 49-year-old exactly what he asked for, and they were confused by his reaction. At least one staff member also said that Norbu had thrown the food at employees during his temper tantrum, not in the garbage, as he told police. According to reports, Norbu was arrested on October 14th and has now been charged with felony arson and criminal mischief. He is currently free on supervised release until his next court date.
Diners at a California ramen restaurant were allegedly treated to quite the terrifying and bizarre spectacle last week when a team of servers dressed in Power Rangers costumes were forced to become real-life superheroes while coming to the defense of an assault victim. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on the evening of October 14th at Noka, a Thai-owned ramen shop in Oakland's Jack London Square. The mood was playful that evening, as the restaurant was doing a weekly drink promotion for one of its cocktails. The drinks are served in special Power Rangers-themed mugs, and as part of the fun, servers dress up as the beloved 90s superheroes to add to the atmosphere. Little did these employees know, however, that they were about to be taking this role-playing experience to a whole other level. According to Ploy Pirapokan, who was having dinner at Noka when everything unfolded, it started when a woman came rushing into the restaurant looking frantic and saying that she wasn't safe. Before anyone could even take in what the woman was saying, a man came running in behind her. Terrified, the woman managed to yell that she didn't want to go home with this man, as he proceeded to put her in a chokehold. Realizing that something needed to be done, the restaurant's manager, who was reportedly dressed as the Black Power Ranger, told the man to leave. He was accompanied by another employee dressed as the Yellow Ranger. Distracted, the attacker reportedly let the woman go and turned his attention to the two Rangers. As he did, other staff members ushered the woman into the kitchen so that she could hide. Then, the man began to take swings at the two Rangers who had stopped him. The Yellow Ranger reportedly blocked the hits. After allegedly resorting to calling the staff members a bunch of racial slurs, the man apparently tried to get to the restaurant's kitchen where the woman was hiding, but once again was stopped by the Yellow Ranger, who grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the restaurant. While this initially seemed to be the end of things, according to reports, despite repeated calls, police took quite some time to arrive. This allegedly gave the male suspect enough time to return to the scene once again, this time accompanied by another man. When he did, he reportedly continued his destructive behavior, picking up whatever he could and throwing it at the restaurant's windows. Once again, the employees sprung into action, this time with multiple Power Rangers getting involved in the fray. They allegedly piled onto the assailants, managing to push them through the doors, which they then locked to prevent them from getting back inside. After this, the suspect apparently seemed to lose interest in the restaurant, allegedly starting another fight nearby until police finally arrived and placed him under arrest. At the time of this recording, neither his name nor the name of the female victim had been released, and authorities allege that during the attack, the suspect was suffering some kind of a mental health crisis. As for the so-called Noka Power Rangers, not only are they now being commended for trying to keep everyone safe, but in another classy move, after the dust settled, the restaurant reportedly told all of the customers who were there at the time that their meals were free.
The family of a 40-year-old Georgia mother is reportedly demanding answers this week after her body was found concealed at a construction site a few miles from her home. According to reports, the incident began at around 10 a.m. on October 14th when workers at a construction site on Ivy Road in the city of Ackworth called police after finding what they believed was a body. This was confirmed when authorities arrived at the scene, and it was later determined that the remains were those of 40-year-old Amanda Sharp. While Amanda's cause of death is currently unknown, police announced that following an investigation, they had arrested a 27-year-old homeless man named Jack Shell in connection with the case. Shell is now facing a number of charges, including concealing the death of another, tampering with evidence, financial transaction card theft, as well as undisclosed drug charges. At the time of this recording, Amanda's devastated family say that they've been provided with little to no information about her death. So far, all that appears to have been released is that it's believed the 40-year-old died at a motel in Kennesaw, about 3 miles away from where she was found. Family members say that they do not know Jack Shell, but that Amanda had been hanging around with several people that they didn't know prior to her death. They are now imploring any members of the public who might have information about the case to come forward. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing.
Authorities in Polk County, Florida say that a 73-year-old man and his 15-year-old son are facing a slew of charges this week after they allegedly fired several shots at an innocent woman in her car while they were searching for a non-existent burglar. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the morning of October 15th, when a resident in the city of Winter Haven realized that one of their neighbor's packages had been mistakenly delivered to their address. In a bid to try and be helpful, the neighbor took the package over to the correct address and dropped it off, leaving it hanging on the door. The apartment is reportedly home to 73-year-old Gino Colanacosta and his 15-year-old son, Rocky. However, when Gino and Rocky were alerted to the neighbor at their door by their Ring doorbell camera, they apparently didn't understand what was going on. And rather than interpreting the act for the friendly gesture that it was, they immediately assumed that the person was a burglar. After arming themselves with guns, Gino and Rocky reportedly left their apartment and began to search around the area for the non-existent burglar. Gino walked around the building, while Rocky began to walk the perimeter of the property. When Gino stumbled across a woman sitting in a vehicle with tinted windows in the parking lot, he allegedly assumed that she was the suspect they were looking for. He then apparently proceeded to point his gun at the woman while yelling and demanding that she get out of her car. Understandably, from the innocent woman's perspective, it looked like she was about to be violently carjacked. She had just returned home from work and was simply checking a few messages before going inside. And all of a sudden, there was a man with a gun in her face who was screaming at her to get out of her vehicle. Fearing for her life, the woman reportedly threw her car into reverse to try and get away. At the same time that this was happening, the commotion from Gino's screaming had reportedly drawn the attention of his son, who rushed over to see if his dad was okay. When he got to the scene and saw the vehicle trying to get away, he immediately responded by firing at its passenger side. This caused the female victim to swerve into a parked car before she was able to successfully drive away. Even as she did so, Gino and Rocky allegedly fired more shots at her and her car. Though thankfully the woman wasn't hit, chillingly, one of the bullets went right through an empty child seat in the back. Eventually, she was able to make it to a nearby gas station and call for help. Gino and Rocky were later arrested. It's now alleged that they fired at least 7 shots during the incident. The father and son are now each facing a number of charges, including aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, attempted felony murder, discharging a firearm in public or on residential property, and improper exhibition of dangerous weapons or firearms. Speaking about the incident at a press conference, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd called the duo's actions, quote, really, really stupid. He went on to say, "This ranks among the craziest stuff that I have seen in a while. And I've seen a lot of crazy stuff."
Authorities in Dallas, Texas say that a 31-year-old man is finally in custody and facing murder charges this week after he allegedly shot a woman earlier this month because she beat him at a game of basketball. According to reports, the incident began at around 7:40 p.m. on October 3rd when police received a call about a shooting on the 4100 block of Hamilton Avenue. Officers arrived to find 21-year-old Asia Womack, who was lying on the sidewalk and suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Although Asia was rushed to a nearby hospital, sadly she couldn't be saved, and she was later pronounced dead. When police began an investigation, things quickly turned from tragedy to outrage when the senseless motive behind the crime was uncovered. Authorities now say that Asia was killed over what was supposed to be a friendly game of basketball. According to reports, on the night of her murder, Asia had gone to play pickup basketball at T.G. Terry Park, located just down the street from her house. One of those allegedly in attendance was Asia's friend, 31-year-old Cameron Hogg. Witnesses say that at some point, a game between Asia and Hogg got a bit heated. Trash talk ensued until finally Asia ended the game victorious. This wasn't all that surprising, since those that knew the 21-year-old said that she was a skilled basketball player and had formerly played on her high school team. However, apparently Hogg took it personally. While it's not exactly clear how the shooting unfolded, most reports we came across suggest that Hogg initially left the scene with a few other people before returning to the park alone. It's alleged that he then shot Asia 5 times before fleeing the area in a vehicle. Though a warrant was put out for Hogg's arrest on October 11th, he reportedly wasn't tracked down and arrested until October 20th. At the time of this recording, he has been charged with murder and remains in police custody.
Representatives from Massachusetts' Hampton County Sheriff's Office say that a 55-year-old woman is facing multiple charges this week after she allegedly weaponized honeybees against several of their officers during the middle of an eviction protest. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of October 12th when members of the Hampton County Sheriff's Office went to a property in Longmeadow to serve eviction papers to a man named Alton King Jr., who reportedly owes $1.3 million on his $1.5 million 22-room home. However, when police arrived at the scene, they were met by protesters who said that they were trying to prevent a wrongful eviction, claiming that King had obtained a bankruptcy stay that would temporarily stop the repossession of his home. While it's unclear if this was true, it seems that officers went ahead with their initial orders and continued to try and serve the eviction papers. It was during this time that things took a bizarre, and they argue, dangerous turn. As police tried to head towards the front door of the property, all of a sudden a woman, later identified as 55-year-old Rory Woods, pulled up in an SUV that was towing a flatbed trailer. On the trailer were numerous hives housing thousands of honeybees. After getting out of her vehicle, Woods reportedly proceeded to remove the lid from one of the hives, releasing hundreds of bees. A deputy jumped onto the trailer and tried to stop Woods, but was stung multiple times in the face and head and was forced to retreat. When he did, Woods managed to push over an entire tower of hives, releasing hundreds more, now extremely agitated bees. At this point, even more officers were stung, causing several to run for cover. Woods was finally arrested after a struggle, though not before she allegedly donned a beekeeper suit to protect herself and tried to move her hives closer to the front door of the repossessed property. According to representatives from the sheriff's office, at least 3 of their officers who were stung were allergic to bees, with one needing to be hospitalized due to their injuries. When Woods was informed about this following her arrest, She allegedly replied, quote, "Oh, you're allergic? Good." Woods has now been charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and disorderly conduct. While the hospitalized officer was ultimately okay, in a later interview, Hampton County Sheriff Nicholas Cochee criticized Woods' actions, saying, quote, "Luckily he was all right, or she could be facing manslaughter charges. I support people's right to protest peacefully, but when you cross the line and put my staff and the public in danger, I promise you will be arrested."
Authorities in Prince William County, Virginia say that 4 people are dead this week after they were brutally killed by one of their housemates. According to reports, the incident began at around 4:30 p.m. on October 17th, when police received a call about a shooting at a home on the 5200 block of Mansfield Court in Dale City. Officers arrived to find the doors of the residence unlocked. To their horror, when they went inside, they found the lifeless bodies of 4 people, all located in different areas of the house. 3 of the victims had been shot, while the 4th person's cause of death has not been disclosed. Tragically, 3 of the victims were soon identified as members of the same family: 44-year-old Miguel Flores, his wife 42-year-old Kelly Sotelo, and Kelly's daughter 19-year-old Carrie Sotelo. The 4th victim was later identified as 36-year-old Richard Corrales, a tenant who was renting the family's basement. According to reports, it didn't take long for police to find their suspect, 24-year-old David Main. Main was the one who allegedly called the police after the killings, though claimed that an unknown assailant had carried out the crime. He was also a tenant at the residence and was arrested after being found wandering around in an area near the crime scene. At the time of this recording, few additional details are available about the crime, and no explanation has been offered as to what might have led up to this terrible crime. Those that knew Miguel and Kelly say that they never had any issues with Main, and that in fact they had made every effort to treat him like family. Adding a further layer to the situation, it said that Miguel and Kelly had only recently gotten married. Main is now facing a number of charges, including 4 counts of murder and 2 counts of use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Okmulgee, Oklahoma say that they have made an arrest in a mysterious and gruesome murder case this week after the dismembered remains of 4 men were recovered from a local river. According to reports, the incident began sometime on October 9th when a group of men were reported missing after failing to return from an evening bike ride. 32-year-old Mark Chastain, his 30-year-old brother Billy Chastain, 32-year-old Mike Sparks, and 29-year-old Alex Stevens had last been seen hanging out at one of their residences on West 6th Street, but were now nowhere to be found and couldn't be reached by their family members. The case took a grisly turn on October 14th when human remains were discovered in the Deep Fork River. They appeared to be the severed pieces of several different bodies. 2 days later, this was confirmed to be the case when, after multiple trips into the river, authorities announced that they had formally identified the remains as being those of the 4 missing men. It was believed that they had been in the water since shortly after their disappearances. At around the same time that this was revealed, police announced that they now believed that at the time they went missing, the victims had been planning to commit some sort of crime. Furthermore, at least one of their cell phones had pinged in a local salvage yard belonging to a 67-year-old man named Joe Kennedy. When authorities investigated the scrapyard, they found undisclosed evidence that a, quote, violent event had recently taken place there. Shortly after police spoke with Kennedy on the day that the remains were first found, he allegedly fled the state. He was found on October 18th while driving a stolen truck more than 1,200 miles away in Daytona Beach Shores, Florida. He has now been arrested, though at the time of this recording has only been charged with grand theft of a motor vehicle, as well as being a fugitive from justice. Currently, authorities say that Kennedy is only a person of interest in the Oklahoma quadruple murder case. That being said, authorities may soon try to have him extradited, as his alleged crimes in Florida also put him in breach of parole conditions from a 2012 assault case. In that instance, Kennedy attacked a group of people who broke into his salvage yard, shooting one of them. If sentenced on those charges, he could reportedly be looking at up to 10 years in prison. For the time being, however, the investigation into the recent chilling quadruple murder case continues, And in the meantime, Kennedy is awaiting further court dates in Florida. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.